Hey guys, you are about to watch an awesome podcast that Gladiator and I just shot with Joby Martin. Joby Martin is a very unique pastor. His church is called Church of 1122. It's in Jacksonville, Florida. If you are in the Jacksonville area, highly encourage you to check it out. He's got a book that's coming out soon. You can pre-order it right now. It's called Stand Firm and Act Like Men. He also has a men's conference coming up October 17th and 18th. That's in Jacksonville, Florida, and we will be there. Be a great opportunity for you to come out, hear a great men's conference, and also meet some of us Men's Alliance guys. So I hope you enjoy this incredible conversation. I know that I did. You can learn more at jobymartin.com. Check it out. Joby, welcome to the Men's Alliance podcast, brother. Thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to be with us today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Awesome, man. So, man, we're kind of new to discovering you and your ministry over this past, couple months here in 2025. And Gladiator here went down and visited your church, and we're really excited about partnering with you, with your upcoming men's conference and these things. And so we feel like we found a like-minded Christian warrior of a brother when we found you. And, man, I would just love to, hear a little bit of your story. Everybody sees you and knows, Church of 1122. But tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are today. What's the background? What's your story that led to what everybody sees today?
Yeah, man. I grew up in a very, very, very small town outside of Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, with a population of about 5,000 people called Dillon.
Oh, yeah.
I would have, if you would have asked me growing up if I was a Christian, I'd said of course, but it was mostly because I was Southern, I believed in God like I believe in SEC football, the Second Amendment, and Santa Claus. Like, it's just part of life. And then I got in some trouble in high school, and my football coach was leading a little denominational camp in Bennettsville, South Carolina, a little summer camp. And so I found myself there, and as a high schooler, that's where I heard the gospel and got saved. And then he put me on staff there years later, so it's where I led my first Bible study, preached my first sermon, all those kind of things happened there. And he really saw in me something that I never saw in me, and he kind of voluntold me to do all the things that I was doing in regards to preaching and Bible study and all of that. And so it was really through that I felt called into ministry, and been doing this my whole life. I've been on the church staff since I was 19. I'm 51 now. I did student ministry up until 2012. We planted the Church of 1122 right here in Jacksonville.
Man, so you've been at it. You felt the calling as a teenager, and been doing it this whole time. Gladiator and myself, we're coming into this. We're brand new to this world of ministry, and I'm retired Air Force. He's retired Army, and we're all in now on men's ministry, and it's amazing how much I'm learning about doing ministry, and trying to play catch up here, coming into the show late, and trying to see what's already been done, read what's already been written, and dive in here. And it's not the way I would have thought it would have been.
What were you expecting?
I don't know, but I think that I was expecting, I would say, more external attacks than internal attacks, to be honest. I think that churches can present bigger obstacles and hurdles than what we would refer to as the world, or the secular world. That's been one of my surprises, is seeing that not everybody's really excited that you're starting a new ministry.
There's a lot of scarcity. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of it's so weird, man. I don't get it. A lot of competition.
Yeah,
and it just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, we have an enemy, and it's not each other, right? And so I don't know. God's blessed us a ton, so we don't really do the scarcity mentality thing. But maybe if we were hanging on by a thread, I don't know. Maybe I would feel differently. I would hope not. But I mean, we've just been Team Jesus and want to partner up with anybody and everybody that loves Jesus and believes the Bible and is pushing back darkness. And so, yeah, like the men's conference, we're not hiding. We don't think we're the only show in town. We're bringing anybody that would point men to Jesus. We want to point people to them. And so, yeah, it's hard, man. The church has actually always done really, really well when the attacks were external. The biggest
That's
warnings,
exactly right. Yeah.
The biggest warnings are from the inside. I mean, Paul gets the elders for the Church of Ephesus together, in like Acts 16, and he's like, "Watch out! There are going to be some wolves that rise up from among you."
Yeah.
And same thing in most of the epistles. I mean, that's what they're about. It's not about how evil Rome is.
That's right. They're all, internal church problems, right?
Oh, yeah. So that's all right. Just plow through them. Here's a little ministry advice. And by the way, thank you both for your service. Because and I don't just say that. I know it's kind of popular to say, but without men and women like you guys doing what you do, I don't get to do what I do. So I do not take it for granted. And but here's some ministry advice. I've been doing this a long time.
Bring it, brother.
You just got to do whatever Jesus has told you to do, period. That's John 2:5. They run out of wine at the wedding of Cana. Mary gets the servants together, and she gives this advice. Do whatever he tells you to do. That's discipleship. That's your whole sanctified life in one sentence. Just do whatever he tells you to do. Now, the next thing he told these people to do made no sense whatsoever. Like, go get a stone jar, fill it up with water. By the way, people have been washing their hands in those jars for like 3 days, so it was nasty. And then scoop some out and take it to the master of ceremonies. None of that makes sense. And little did the people know that there was a miracle on the other end of doing whatever he told them to do. Okay, so you do whatever Jesus tells you all to do in your ministry. And then no matter what you do, it's going to be 3 little bears, man. Some people are going to be like, that's too much. And some people are going to say, that's not enough. And then there's going to be a few people that go, that's about right. And just pick out those that's about right people, and that's your ride or die. And the people that think it's too hot or too cold or too much or not enough, don't worry about them people. They're going to be. It doesn't matter what you do. I mean, at the ascension of Jesus, there were people complaining that he didn't do it right. Think about that. He's been crucified, dead, buried, and he's resurrected, and he's like floating up into heaven. And he just gives a great commission, and some people worship him, and other people still doubt it. So you can't win them all. And there's going to be people that complain about, I don't know, you just told me you start groups around campfires, and some people are going to be like in New York, man, we don't have campfires. Okay, just don't worry about them.
Right.
If you can't figure out a campfire, then you ain't our people. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Some other ministry will be for you. Or if you can't work out, okay, whatever. Somebody, no matter what you do, it's going to be too hot or too cold. The people that say, you know what, I think this is a fit, that's the folks that you just pour into those people. And then when we're faithful with what God puts right in front of us, then he may choose to expand it, or he may not, but that's all up to him. That's my story in ministry. Like, I was just doing student ministry. I thought I would teach the Bible to like a dozen high school kids for the rest of my life. And then as I was faithful to just teach the Bible to these kids, my opportunity and influence just began to expand as the Lord saw fit. And I never tried to accomplish any of that. Like, even this church that I get to pastor now, us planting this church was my pastor's idea. It wasn't my idea. He said, you need to go plant a church, because we had outgrown the church we were at. And then even then, I've just been doing what the Lord has told me to do as a preacher of the Bible. And then, you just kind of, the chips fall where they may, man.
Man, I tell you, I wasn't planning coming into this podcast. I wasn't planning to tell you about my problems and ask you for advice, but man, am I glad it just came out. I'm glad that I share that, because I really appreciate your words, and just do whatever Jesus tells you to do is, man, that's awesome in its simplicity. I love it. And you're right, man. Those 3 little bears, it can get discouraging. I'm curious, what are some of the obstacles or trials or discouragements that you've had to plow through in your ministry?
I mean, there's a lot. COVID and all that was happening during those years, we learned a lot about churches during those times. First of all, man, you don't know what you don't know. So I'm not here to beat up on people that made decisions when we didn't have a lot of information, you know? But we just decided to make it about the gospel and not to chase every thing that was happening in our culture, you know? I mean, there was obviously a ton of racial unrest, and then there's all the things going on with COVID, and everybody's just kind of hunkered down. We don't know what to do. And I think after about 6 or 7 weeks, I was like, you know what, screw this. We're just opening, and we're going to do church. If you don't like it, no problem. You don't have to come. And and we're not going to tell people what they can or can't do in regards to masks. You're grown people. You live in America. You do what you want to do. But I'm not going to police people. I'm just going to preach the gospel. And I'm not going to take a result of the gospel and replace it for the gospel. So the gospel should bring people together, but the point of the church is not unity. The point of the church is the gospel, and an effect of the gospel is unity. And so we just said, here we go, man. And so, I mean, God blessed it like crazy, but I will tell you, though, it's in the toughest times when you realize that leadership is needed most. Because leadership is basically just bringing clarity, like setting direction. You know, if you're the leader, the team looks at you and says, all right, boss, what are we doing? Which direction are we going? And the person that is the clearest and the sharpest and the most consistent, that's the person that is the leader. And so at this point, you know, heading into Easter of 25, our biggest hurdles would just, same thing, be internal. Like, you know, we're reaching people like we've never have before. We have a very fast-growing church, and complacency and comfort would probably be our biggest enemy. Or, you know, getting suckered by the enemy who wants to steal, kill, and destroy. Those kind of things would be our biggest enemy. Like you said, it's rarely, you know, it's rarely something from the outside. It's always internal.
Yeah, you know, you mentioning comfort. That's one of the big ones that I feel is one of our big three problems right now in the culture that we're trying to address is, you know, like you said, the church does really well when it's being attacked from the outside.
Right.
And we haven't been in that position in America like ever. And so I think, you know, by and large, most Christian men in this country have grown so comfortable that they've just fallen asleep on the sidelines, and just trying to get men out of that comfort zone, get them awake, get them back engaged, back in the game. That's one of our passions. That's one of our goals, and one of our challenges as well.
Yeah, I do think there's a bit of an awakening right now. I don't know if it'll be a full-fledged spiritual awakening. I do know there's some things like more Bibles have been purchased in the past year than maybe any time in the history of America. That's cool. I also think the ultra-progressive dark world kind of overplayed its hand over the last 40 years, when you can't even tell what a man is, and you've got grown men beating up women and calling it sport, and it's almost like they overplayed their hand, and it did wake up a bunch of dudes. I mean, I kind of feel like there's like the return of the alpha male right now. But we've got to realize we didn't win anything. That's just the starting line, not the finish line. And what will we do with this opportunity? Will we, you know, beat our chest and be like, oh, we're in charge again? Or will we use it as an opportunity to push back darkness and to serve the people that God has stewarded us with, you know? And so I think we have a real opportunity. In fact, this year at 1122, the whole focus for the year is that we would stand firm and act like men.
Yep.
And
that's
again,
what I was just about to ask.
Yeah, bro. Yeah, that's it. I mean, because it's time. I mean, men that's what we got to do. And the only way to stand up and act like a man is bend your knee to Jesus and be the kind of man that he's called us to be.
Yeah, so we were down there in Jacksonville for a ISI conference, and that Sunday we came and went to 1122, and you guys were in the book of Timothy. And man, first off, I thought you were there I was so into it, watching you up there preach, and then I realized I was watching a movie or something. I was talking to one of the pastors, the campus pastors outside, and he's like, "No, he wasn't even here, man. That's our new screen."
Good. Yeah, I do that about we're a multi-site video venue church. I'm not saying that's the way to do it. It's just the way we've decided to make disciples, and we're not scared of technology. We want to leverage it for the sake of the gospel. So anyway, so I preach at our broadcast location, and it pumps out to all of our campuses. And then about 5 or 6 times a year, we pre-record on a Thursday night because we have a Thursday night service. And so I'm not here, but I'm preaching via video. And I don't know exactly what weekend that was, but if that's the case, I was probably preaching at another church somewhere.
Yep. No, well, I just want to let you know that didn't take away from the message at all. I mean, I was completely sold thinking you were there. It was amazing.
Well, even when I am here, nobody looks at me anyway. Everybody looks at the screen. I mean, I tell you, because I walk across the stage, nobody's head turns. So everybody's looking at the screen. It's fine. And if people don't like it, okay, cool. Shoot me an email at jimmycrackscorn@idon'tcare.com. No
There's
problem.
Another
dude.
one. That's one of the things. Man, I had one of your campus pastor there for the church there on Beach Road sent me the journal for Timothy.
Yeah.
And in one of the note pages, I've just been writing down. I call them Jobyisms, and that was one of them. Man, I just added the 3 little bears thing. It's something that, man, for me, it just keeps me so engaged in your sermons. And I love them, so please don't stop that.
No problem.
But one of the questions I had, man, was you're talking about it. You guys are multiple campuses, a large church, right? Some call you a mega church. How are you responding to when someone says you're a mega church, man? You're doing too much. What do you have to say to that?
Well, first, I don't know who came up with that term. What a dumb term.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you been to Jacksonville? It's mega lost. That's what I'm in. I'm in a mega lost city. And honestly, half the people in Jacksonville think they're believers because their grandma went to church or something. Or you know what I mean? Or they grew up going to church. And going to church doesn't make you a Christian any more than sticking your head in the oven makes you a biscuit. That is not how this thing works. And so what do you want me to do? This drives me crazy. So do you want me to reach less people, baptize less people? I don't understand. Who do you want me to uninvite? Because usually the person asking the question is top of my list, all right? Because if you read Mark chapter 2, the guys that tore off the roof to make room for their friend, they are the ones that were commended. Their friend got the results of their faith because they were willing to do whatever it took to get one more person to Christ. So listen, man, I mean, you can be critical of us. Get in line. That's fine. But just know that when you are hypercritical of what other believers are doing, then you're not playing for Team Jesus. We have an accuser of the brethren. And so I'm not going to spend any of my time criticizing what other churches are or aren't doing. If they ask my opinion, I'm happy to share my opinion. But listen, we're just trying to make disciples and make disciples and make disciples. And we've never really tried to be a big church. We just try to make room for one more. And let me tell you who loves a growing church. The person that has that prodigal son, that person that's got that cousin that's addicted to drugs, that person that knows if I bring my friend or family member or loved one to this place, they're going to be welcomed and they're going to hear the truth of the good news. And so every time the disciples got in trouble, it's because they tried to huddle up and keep other people out. And every time they got a high five from Jesus, it's because they were a conduit of the grace of God. So, people can fight about, how they want to do church or what we're not doing right. That's fine. Y'all fight with each other, and I don't want to fight with these people because it's like wrestling a pig. Everybody gets dirty and the pig likes it. So I ain't got time for that. I'm going to make disciples. We're going to plant churches, launch campuses, and I'll stop when Jesus returns or when everybody on the planet knows Jesus. So whichever one comes first, that's when I'll stop. Until then, it's gas down.
Let's go.
I mean, can you imagine if today's culture bumped into the Apostle Paul? They'd be so offended. They'd be like, Paul, don't you think you're doing too much? Don't you need some me time and some self-care?
We don't like your
what
tone.
the freak are you talking about, dude?
We don't like your tone.
I guarantee you nobody would have liked his tone.
Yeah. So anyway, that's fine. If you don't like it, neat. Okay, praise God. He's created all kind of different voices and all kind of different flavors of church to reach all kind of different people. And I ain't even hating on you. I don't like my tone either. I can't wait till it's all gone and there's nothing but Jesus left in me. I don't like me. But I am who I am, and this is what God has called me to do. So we're here to reach people, man. Like back to that in Mark chapter 2 when they tear off the roof. Can you imagine what it was like for those 4 friends when they were leaving that day? Because one of them had to be like, I told y'all, if we could just get him to Jesus. And look, and their friend is walking with them. I mean, they loved it that they could make room for one more. You know who didn't like it? You know who complained? The Pharisees on the front row. So just be careful when you're complaining about how big church is. That game's been played before. Or my favorite one is people are like, y'all spent how much money on a worship service? Do you know what that money could be used for? Yeah, there's a guy that said that one time. It was Judas when the woman with the alabaster jar busted it open to worship Jesus. And he said, do you know what that money could be used for? So when you play that game, man, you're on Team Devil. You realize that?
And you guys ran into that problem in the beginning, like back in 2012 when you raised a bunch of money to start the church, right? And then what was some of that criticism that you got feedback on?
It's so ridiculous. We're in an old Walmart. We renovated an old Walmart, and so out of the gate, we needed $4 million to renovate it, but we raised $5 million. And so on the way out the door, we gave $1 million to Beach Church that let us grow up and live there to help them pay off one of the debt they had on a building there. Yeah, and there were critics saying, you know what they could do with that $4 million? Well, first of all, we're not a savings loan, and the church does not primarily exist to take care of physical needs. They primarily exist to make disciples and make disciples and make disciples. And disciples, for sure, take care of people in need. See Matthew chapter 25. So we invested it here, $4 million to renovate an old Walmart and to make disciples. Well, if you're just looking on what you could do with money, today, our church sponsors 21,000 compassion kids. So you multiply that times $45 a month times 12 months times 21,000 kids. It's like $12 million a year. Doesn't even come through our church. It just goes to sponsor kids, to release kids from poverty in Jesus' name. And so I'm telling you, man, don't be dumb and listen to the critics. Do what Jesus tells you to do. You make disciples, and there was plenty of dollars in this world to accomplish everything that Jesus wants to accomplish. And I love the old John Piper quote. And he says something like, we hope to alleviate all suffering and pain, especially eternal. So that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, one of those Jobyisms that I'm calling them. You said don't chase dollars, chase disciples, and the dollars will come.
Yeah, that's it, man. Yeah, and just make disciples. Make disciples.
We had a conversation about that earlier in this year.
Oh yeah,
that we need to just keep going after the men, going and training more men to be disciples, and God's going to go with us.
That's right.
Yeah,
I'm interested in hearing a little bit, Joby, about your outpost. Can you tell our listeners, tell us a little bit about this?
Yeah, I read a book called Team of Teams by Stanley McChrystal. You know, he was in charge of the Global War on Terror for a while, and he said when he first was in charge of that, he thought, well, this should be easy. I mean, we're the biggest, baddest fighting machine in the history of the world, and these guys have outdated weapons, and and they live in caves. So this should take 3 or 4 days. And so he gets to Al-Qaeda and kills the number 3 guy in Al-Qaeda. And he thought, oh, we've really done something. Then he realized apparently everybody that lives there is the number 3 guy in Al-Qaeda. So, and there's this one line in the book, the reason I bring it up. And he says, I realized we had the greatest fighting force of the 20th century fighting a 21st century war. And I thought, I mean, you guys really know this. I just read about it. And I thought, church is going really good for us. But what if we've got the best church model or whatever, really successful church model of the 20th century trying to disciple people in the 21st century?
Yeah.
So I called my dude, Ryan Britt, my executive pastor, and I was like, all right, dude, we're doing 1122 online. I don't care. Just go. I'll fight all the ecclesiological battles when I get home, but we're just doing it. I don't care where you live. If you raise your hand anywhere in the planet and say, will you disciple me? Our answer is yes. And so again, man, I got a bunch of critics. They're like, that's not really a church because it doesn't have these things. Okay, neat. Y'all fight about that. I'm going to make disciples. Well, we pulled the trigger. We hired some staff. We had to buy all the gear to start 1122 online. The weekend we got it plugged in and going, COVID started. The weekend. We plugged it in on Thursday. Church got shut down for Sunday. We were off for 6 weeks, and we were rolling. And everybody else's church wasn't ready. Not everybody, a bunch of them weren't ready. We were ready. Well, since then, what's happened is our online audience has just expanded like crazy. And we have people all over the world that just gather together, and they are discipled through the Church of 1122. And so basically 1122 outposts are simply identify who you are, we see you, you are us, and we will continue to be your church and disciple you. And I don't care what the end game is. Like, maybe you guys will meet Jesus through us and then join a local church in your own town. Praise God for that. Or maybe you'll be a campus of ours one day. I don't care. Or maybe you'll just continue to meet in your living room as a supplement to something else. I don't care. That's not the point. I'm not trying to control the ends. I'm just trying to be obedient to what Jesus said, which was to go and make disciples of all nations. And so right now, if you go to our website, you could sign up to be an outpost, which means, we equip you with all the things. There's leadership training. You just have to be willing to meet consistently, and you got to be open for people to come and join your deal, and that's an outpost. And we'll see what happens. I know that people will get saved and that men and women and students will get discipled, but we'll see what happens in regards to where God takes it.
Hey, men. Thrivent is proud to support Men's Alliance's goals, and financial advisor Dr. Andrew Newman, call sign Sage, is excited to help tribe members and those they care about make financial choices guided by their Christian values. Faith is what fuels Andrew. Does it fuel you too? Call Andrew today at 612-246-0725 so you can take care of yourself and those you care about, including your local tribe and Men's Alliance.
What is the name of that training program that you guys do at 1122? I think I'm getting it confused. It's not Saturated.
Saturated is like a revival in the fall. We do Growth Track.
Growth Track. There you go.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just like a 3-week onboarding. Oh, it's like an on-ramp if you want to be a member of 1122.
Okay.
There's some theology. It's who we are, where we're going. Some personal disciplines, It's really about discipleship and who we are as a church. And then the end game is, do you want to be an owner of what we're doing here instead of just being a consumer? And if that's the case, then we invite you to be a covenant member.
Great.
You're using the word discipleship a lot and making disciples. And of course, that's the Great Commission. And I love that you're doing that. I think that I grew up in a Southern Baptist church in North Carolina and, thought that I knew all the Bible stories when I was a kid. Wasn't ever living for God. Probably, debatable whether or not, I was born again. But I know this. I know that I used to think that the Great Commission said, if you'd have asked me, 15 years ago, put the Great Commission in your own words, I would have said something like, go into all parts of the world and tell everybody about Jesus. And I think that that's still the way a lot of people in this country operate, thinking it's just blast the message out of Jesus, which I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but it's actually, the Great Commission is actually a little deeper than just tell people about Jesus. It's go and make disciples. And I think there's something very, very important distinction to be made there between just telling people about Jesus, if we can put that in air quotes, but making disciples. Tell us, what do you mean when you talk about making disciples, and how is that different from simply telling everybody about Jesus? How do you go from telling them about Jesus to making them a disciple?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, isn't it? Because the command is impossible. Because To be a disciple just means you follow Jesus. That's what it means. And so the key question is, what's your next step of obedience? That's it. What is your next step of obedience in following Jesus? And if you quit taking steps, then by definitions, you are no longer following because you're standing still. And God is on the move. And so the imperative in the Great Commission, I mean, I don't do a Greek lesson, but the English translation of therefore go isn't exactly right. It's more like therefore as you are on the go, make disciples. And so if you were raised in a North Carolina Southern Baptist church, you were probably right. You probably did know all the Bible stories because nobody's committed to the Bible like the Southern Baptists, man. I mean, so they teach the book, praise God for that. And nobody has sent more missionaries than the Southern Baptists to go and tell, no doubt. But to make a disciple is first and foremost, the first step in what that means is that you surrender your life to the lordship of Jesus Christ. Historically, we would call that evangelism. Like I share the gospel with you, and then you respond to the good news either by rejecting Christ or receiving grace. And I don't know how we bifurcated the idea of evangelism and discipleship like they were two different things, as opposed to thinking about it like one continuum. Like if think about it, read it in the Gospels. When did Peter get saved? When he dropped his nets? When he confessed Christ at the mountain? At Caesarea Philippi? Is it when he saw the resurrected Christ? Is it when he was filled with the Holy Spirit in Acts 2? It's kind of hard to tell, right? There was this, Jesus goes to Peter on the shore of the Sea of Galilee and says, follow me. And then Peter just consistently followed in the footsteps of Jesus. Now, we know the moment you surrender your life to Christ, you believe when he died on the cross, that counted for me. We know that in that moment, you are brought from death to life. But that's not the finish line. That's the beginning line. And so a disciple just does whatever Jesus tells you to do. Now, around here at 1122, we took our vision statement. We're a movement for all people to discover and deepen a relationship with Jesus Christ. And then we developed what we call a discipleship journey that just ask a few diagnostic questions under the banner of what is the next step he is calling you to take. And so we say that a disciple loves all people by sharing and serving. So maybe the next step for you is to go on a mission trip or to start serving somewhere, or maybe it's to share your faith with somebody. We say that a disciple discovers their identity in Christ, and that's about salvation and stewardship. So maybe your first step is that you need to trust Christ for your salvation, and we continuously need to be good stewards of everything that he's given us. And then a disciple deepens their relationship with Christ by deepening your faith and deepening your connection with the faith family. So for us, all we've done is put language around what theologians for years have talked about with discipleship practices, and we're just trying to help people diagnose what's their next step as they grow to be conformed to the image and likeness of Christ. That's what a disciple is. That you do the things Jesus tells you to do as you follow in his footsteps.
I love that there's a lot of action verbs in that you just said, right? It's doing, it's walking, it's following. Jesus always told people, follow me, which I love. The more I've been, contemplating this and reading about this, and you think about it, like, I'm sure, this is something that, everybody's kind of discovered at some point in their life, is the fact that the word relationship isn't in the Bible, and some people get all up in the air and freaked out about that fact, and they're like, well, Jesus does want a relationship with you, and I'm like, yeah, he does. That's just not the way he chose to word it. And I think there's a masculine message to follow me versus I want to have a relationship with you, or come have a relationship with me. It's not that that's wrong. It's not that that's incorrect. It's just that that's not the way Jesus phrased it. That's not the way Jesus worded his message. He worded it saying, come and follow me. And which is really a challenge when you think about it. That's a challenge. Like, can you follow me? Are you up for this? And I'm going to be moving. Are you able to hang with me and follow me on this journey? I love the way Jesus approached men and told them, stop what you're doing and come follow me. And, that's part of the messaging that we're all about in Men's Alliance. Is we're training men. We're training men to be better husbands, fathers, and spiritual leaders in their homes. And I think that's sort of a challenge, the training, the follow me. If we can get more churches around this country to kind of go back to that original messaging and wording that Jesus used, they'll reach more men as well, because I think Jesus' message was perfectly tailored to male psychology to reach men, and he got men to follow him, and he didn't go around saying, hey, I want to have a relationship with you. Please ask me into your heart. And when we have made that the main message in churches, I think that's, again, it's not incorrect, but it has more of a feminine appeal. And so this is one of my thoughts is if we can get more churches, more men's ministries, whatever, using the very discipleship language that you're using right now about, hey, it's movement, it's doing, it's following, it's walking. I think that's how one of the ways we start reaching more men is by going back to the very message that Jesus used.
Yeah, and then I think you got to call men to true biblical masculinity. So when Paul in Corinthians says, stand firm, be strong, act like men, the way he closes that up is, and let everything you do be done in love. And all of that doing has to be founded, like your behavior is founded in belief. And Jesus said the most important thing you can do is love God. Think about that. So even his command to make a disciple is really impossible without a supernatural work of the Spirit of God. Because I could teach you and train you to do all kind of things to be a better husband and to be a better man, but I can't make you love anything. Like, God's got to do that in your heart. And the foundation of this whole thing is to love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. And if you think about it, like Jesus says, this whole thing is rooted in our friendship. He's like, I call you friends. You call me master, and rightly so, for I am. But I call you friends. Because the master doesn't tell his servants what he's going to do, but I'm telling you the plan, and I am calling you into this. Or if you think about it, John 15, as the only way we can produce fruit in our life is we've got to abide in him and he abide in us. So you can use whatever language you want around that. I would just be cautious to not throw the baby out with the bathwater. I agree, man. There ain't a lot of men be like, you know what I need in my life? I need some relationships, and I need some circle. I need to sit in some circles and read some stuff and talk about how it makes me feel. That ain't what we're looking for whatsoever. But even when you guys were in war, bro, that thing better be rooted in a trust, a bond, a brotherhood, whatever words you want to use. And that, it's crazy. That's what Christ calls us into, a friendship that's rooted in love that drives action.
Well,
and that the love and the friendship precedes the activity, not the other way around.
Man, yeah. So to that point, we were just talking right before we started the podcast this morning. Gladiator and I were talking about there are some words in the New Testament that we're told to put on, like put them on like clothing, that are very difficult for us, right? Like Paul tells us to put on patience, kindness, and then like the hardest word of all to put on is gentleness. Like none of us want to be gentle, but like, that's what we're called to do. Even, 1 Peter 3:15 that everybody loves, it says, but do this with gentleness and love or respect. And man, that's a tall order. Like you're saying, it's a very tall order to be told, stand strong, be men, but do it with love, kindness, gentleness, and patience. That's where I know, as I read it, and most men, we're like, oof, I don't know if I can live up to that one.
Yeah, and it's just I actually just preached on it this weekend as we were closing up Titus. I was like, man, the Bible commands us because of the gospel to be gentle. That's not even a goal for most of us. Like, nobody at our funeral wants to be like, boy, Larry was gentle,
Kid.
But I would say, man, if you're not dangerous, you can't be gentle because you don't have a choice. You're just weak.
Yeah.
I love the word in the New Testament, meekness, because you guys know this. Meek doesn't mean weak. It's the Greek word for bridled horse. It's just controlled strength. Like, you'd rather be a soldier in a garden than a gardener in a war.
Yep.
And so if you're just a weak man, you're actually just worthless, dude. Gentleness, I think biblical gentleness is it's a sheathed sword. Like, you have the ability to take a head off. You just know when to pull that thing out and when to leave it in its place. That's what gentleness is. Or maybe an applicable way for us to think about it. Biblical gentleness, while being a strong, dangerous man, means that we learn how to be tough for and tender with. Like, you're tender with your wife and your kids, and and then when it's time to be tough for them, then you go fight for them. What too many of us do is we're tough with them and we're tender for them. Like, we don't stand up for them when it matters, like at the school board. And then we come in beating our chest in the kitchen thinking we're a man, because you can make, your middle school kid do what you say? Yeah, good job, dude.
Wow.
Like, and so that's what it means. I mean, a gentle guy is, man, I don't know if you ever hung around some like UFC dudes. We went to the inauguration, and I was hanging out with George St. Pierre and Bo Nichols and all these guys. Chad Robichaux invited us to go, and Gordon Ryan, and all these guys are there, right? And that is a picture. They could kill everybody in that room that moment if they decided to. And yet they were so kind. They were so everybody that wanted to take a picture with them would say hey, and we just hung out the whole night, dude. That is a picture of like biblical gentleness. Is like, I know when to unleash this thing when I step in that octagon to do my job and knock a man's head off, and then I know when to put a suit on and be cordial and just be polite to folks. And and if you guys have been around, like, and I know you have, when you guys have been around like men that can actually, that are actually dangerous, they never have to flex and prove it. It's the guys that aren't, that are insecure, that end up being extra loud or, extra rude in their cars.
That's 100% true.
Right.
I think, nobody is more hesitant to get in a fight than somebody who has trained in a martial art. Because for one thing, you realize a guy who's never done any training, he probably thinks way higher of himself. But once you do a little training, you realize very quickly that there's a lot of dudes out there, and there always will be, who are a little bit better than you. And it's a humbling thing. And
it does not matter what they look like. Oh, my gosh.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Like, I love, like, I've had some opportunities in my life where I was able to, introduce my sons to, some warriors that I worked with and stuff. And, and I'll be telling them at home about this dude that I'm working with or hunting with. And he's like, a Green Beret sniper, or this guy's a Navy SEAL. And my sons are always excited to meet him, because their dad's just this lame Air Force dude. And my sons always meet him, and it's always a dude that's like balding, and he's got a pot belly, and he drives an old beat up station wagon. And they're always disappointed. They're like, that's the dude? I'm like, yeah, that's like the most lethal killer you will ever see in your life. And they're like, but he doesn't look like the guys look in the movies. And I'm like, exactly right. They never do. So be careful who you're talking to out there.
No doubt, man. Well, at least cauliflower ear gives it away for some people now.
That's true. If you got cauliflower ear, you probably
bad dude.
Yeah, that's one question I got for you is how have you avoided that? Because you're a purple belt, right?
Yeah.
So I just wanted,
how do your ears look so great? That's the question.
Yeah, I know you've been avoiding that, but I wanted to sneak that in there that you're a Harley riding, Jiu-jitsu purple belt, and
I had to get them drained in college. They were starting to go there. So when I was in college wrestling, I was the one guy that would wear headgear at practice because I don't know, I was too concerned about what I looked like. Probably that's probably why I didn't go as far as I could have. But I don't know. I mean, one of the things is you just pay attention to it when you're rolling. You know what I mean? Like. if you want to use your head as a weapon, it's going to look like a hammer. So, you got to think, bro, we're just doing murder yoga. Like, you're just trying to fold laundry with somebody else in it, but you could, I just try to pay attention to it a little bit.
That's great. Hey, I wanted to just shift gears for a minute and throw a couple of hot topic items at you and just hear your responses to some easy softball stuff. But it's stuff that the world is asking and people are asking and people are Google searching. And so I would love for us to have the opportunity to hear your response to, and I've got a couple of these, but the first one is, what does the Bible say about drinking alcohol, and should Christians drink alcohol? Give us your position on that.
It says that wine is a gift from God, and don't be drunk. So, that's a loaded question. Every good and perfect gift is from above, and the enemy takes what God creates and he corrupts it. So alcohol would be one of those things, just like food or sex or money or whatever. I think you just can't find a verse where it says that you can't drink, and you can try to manipulate things and say that Jesus didn't actually drink wine, but you're just making stuff up, man. Those things just aren't true.
Your
just not
sermon
true.
this weekend out of Titus, you were talking about that with the drinking wine.
Yeah, but you shouldn't get drunk, dude, and you should also you should consider others as more important than yourself. And if you're drinking negatively impedes somebody around you, then you should pay very close attention to that. And so we lay down our freedoms as believers for the sake of the body. And it's something to pay attention. The thing is so we have freedom to drink. If you ever abuse it or it abuses you, then you're outside of the will of God. And you should know that if you drink, the enemy is trying to use it to kill you. So pay very close attention to it. And then you should have somebody in your life that you have invited into your life that if there was ever a problem, they would love you enough to tell you about it. And the moment you start to justify stuff in your head, then there's a problem. I mean, if you start setting up rules about, well, I only do this after this, man, you should pay very close attention to that. I do think it's a good thing to fast from every year for, just to continuously tell your flesh no.
Yeah.
And be very, very careful. Be very, very careful.
Amen. Has money gotten in the way of how God can use you? Let me tell you about Tom Love, certified financial planner with the Main Street Group. Tom Love from Tuckahoe Tribe, a.k.a. Doc, can absolutely get you squared away with your finances. My wife and I use Doc to handle our personal finances, and his team is second to none. Tom is a certified financial planner. He's a Dave Ramsey SmartVestor Pro. He's been ranked top 40 under 40. He's been ranked number 2 in Richmond Times Dispatch. He's been featured in the Wall Street Journal. And make sure you mention Men's Alliance whenever you reach out to Doc. He gives Men's Alliance, Tip of the Spear Ministries, a portion of the proceeds when you invest through him. He's a fee-only fiduciary, which means he doesn't make money unless you make money. So check out Tom Love at the Main Street Group. That's good. All right, next one for you. Christians, should they get tattoos? What does the Bible say about that?
Only if they want to be like Jesus.
Tell us about that.
When he returns, he's got King of Kings and Lord of Lords written on his thighs. I don't think it's with a Sharpie, do you? So, yeah, in the Old Testament, Leviticus says you should not mark your body. It also says you shouldn't wear earrings or cut your sideburns. So what the Levitical law was about is that Israel was called to be holy or set apart, and there were tattoos and piercings that represented that you worshiped other gods. And so God was saying, don't do anything that would look like you worship another god. In the New Covenant, the old is gone and the new has come. That doesn't mean we unhitch from the Old Testament. That means that Jesus is the fulfillment of every promise and prophecy. And so you should only do things that bring God glory. And so I'm inked all over the place and about to get more. And so I hope everything that I have just points people to Jesus. But yeah, I mean, and here's where you got to be really careful to have your personal preference get confused with a precept of God.
That's good.
So if you don't like them, no problem. Don't get tattoos. And if you don't like mine, no problem. You can not like them. And you can tell people, I don't care. I didn't get them for you.
Exactly. So
And I'm
since you
getting
got
some
them
more.
for yourself, what's some of your favorites that you have?
I mean, I don't really have an unfavorite. I started with Acts 11:24. I've got a cross and a crown of thorns, and Acts 11:24 says, "And he was a good man, full of the Holy Spirit and faith, and a great number of people were brought to the Lord." And that verse was the verse they preached about Coach Lee, the guy that led me to Christ, and that's what I want to live my whole life for. And then I've got like a family crest on the inside of my arm, and then I've got the latest one I got is like the sword of the Spirit and Timothy in Greek, where he says, I guess you can see it right there, and it says preach the word in Greek, so that when I'm grabbing onto my podium and I look down on my right arm, I see preach the word, and on my left arm I've got tetelestai, so that when the enemy whispers his lies to me, like I shouldn't be up there preaching, then I can say, shut up, go back to hell, because it is finished, and Jesus paid it all for me. So they all mean stuff to me.
Yeah. So is that's
awesome.
The sword, is that in reference to that new podcast that you just released here this year?
Yeah, that's where I got the idea, the Daily Blade. You know, it's 5 minutes today. Me and Kyle just hammer men with the Bible. So yeah, it was definitely inspired through that.
Awesome.
Man, absolutely incredible. Appreciate you sharing that with us. Some people don't like talking about their tattoos, and I get that too, right? Because sometimes we get super personal stuff that's very meaningful from our past or whatever on us.
Yeah.
I think it's a great reminder. I like how you have something there visible on you when you look down when you're on that podium. Man, that's a great idea. I've got on my right wrist, I've got "Live Free." And, that's my reminder to myself that I'm free from my past. I'm free from my sin. Now live accordingly, right? Go live like a free man who's just been set free. And every time I see that, it makes me, want to hit the gas. It's like, hey, live the way you should be. Stop living and behaving like a slave to something. So, I appreciate you sharing that, and I would love if you're listening to this podcast, I would love to for you guys to share with us as listeners what you have inked and what that means to you. If you've got one as well, please share that with us. I think it's encouraging to hear what other men are reminding themselves of daily by writing it on their arm. That's a tremendous point about when Jesus returns, he has King of Kings and Lord of Lords written on his thigh, which has always been like such an interesting thing to read. You're like, man, that sounds so bizarre, right? It's something very unique. I can't wait to ask him or see that and find out more about that one day in person.
Dude, I love the description of glorified Jesus coming back in the end, like eyes like fire and a sword coming out of his mouth. And then there's two descriptions of what he's wearing. Sometimes he's in white, which is crazy. If you show up in all white to a fight, it ain't going to take long and you're going to win. You know what I'm saying? I mean, think about that. And then his robe's dipped in blood. And the Bible it doesn't, like, is that the blood of his enemies, or is that the blood of the Lamb, or is that the blood from the cross? But, dude, it's going to be a bloody battle. But he's already won. So, anyway, I love it. But, yeah, just be very, very careful to not take your own preferences on something like tattoos, because that's the way you grew up, or you got one verse out of Leviticus that doesn't mean what you think it means. Because I promise you probably eat shellfish and live by brackish water and wear more than just cotton clothes. So, that verse was about being separated from this world. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great reminder to people that we're not under Levitical law, and there's a lot of laws in the Old Testament that are descriptive for that time and that place and that people, but they're not prescriptive for us today. So I appreciate you weighing in on both of those items for us, the alcohol and the tattoos. I think those are questions that a lot of guys get, a lot of guys have, and it's always great to hear an opinion of a man like yourself. Thank you for that. All right, as we start to begin to land this plane, I want to open things up. Gladiator, I want to make sure you got in all your questions for him, and Joby, if you have any questions for us, man, I'd love to if you've got any questions or thoughts or comments or anything you want to speak into our ministry, I'd love to hear that as well.
No, I look forward to, really getting to know you guys. My team said you guys might be out for our men's conference this fall.
That's right. We're coming.
So that'd be a good opportunity to expose a bunch of people, that'll be at the conference to what you guys are doing. So I look forward to that for sure.
Man, we're excited about that. Can't wait to come down there for that. It looks like it's going to be an incredible event. Like I said, it's great to find and partner with some like-minded Christian warriors. For one thing, it's very encouraging, but probably more importantly, or just as importantly, I think it's very impactful. Right, when our efforts get multiplied. I'm very excited. Like you said, I do believe like we are seeing the pendulum start to swing back the other direction in this culture right now. It does feel like more men are starting to become awake, starting to read their Bibles again, starting to view the Word of God a little different than they were, just 5 or 6 years ago. So I'm excited to do our part in trying to continue moving this football down the field.
Yeah, man, and we want to partner with you guys in any way we can. I mean, we're just trying to make disciples. And anybody listening to a men's podcast knows that, when men lead and love well, everybody flourishes. And when men are captured by the astounding grace of God, it impacts a family differently than if just the women and children are. And it's by God's design. God designed us to lead. So as goes the leader, so goes the team. That's true in our country. That's true in my church. That's true in your family.
Yeah. Oh man, no, I have lists of questions. I mean, I could spend weeks with Joby, and actually that leads me to one of the things. So we talked about the conference, the men's conference, but you were actually doing a leadership conference in September also, right? Yeah,
we're doing a church leaders summit. There seems to be a bit of a gap right now, in kind of church leadership summit kind of things. And so we've got so many people that call us every week and ask us how we do this, that, and the other. And we're always wide open, and we have church staffs here all the time. So we just decided to invite everybody to the same weekend or week and invite and open it. I mean, you don't have to be on staff at a church to come. If you want to be a better leader at home, or if you lead a ministry, or if you just want to come and kind of see behind the curtain on how the sausage is made here at 1122, we're basically just going to open up our whole staff and our facilities and everything to anybody who wants to come and be a part of it. And I'm telling you, man, Jesus will be exalted. We'll teach a lot of Bible. We'll train a bunch of people, and you'll have access to us. And so we're happy to do that if we could be helpful for the kingdom.
Yeah, that excites me, and I think I'm going to save a lot of my questions for that. One of the things I just wanted to point out, and I wanted to ask you if it's intentional, is, like I said, I came down there in February, and then I got hooked on your style of preaching. I'm a huge fan, and it seems like every sermon you preach, you're giving the gospel. Is that intentional, or does that just happen?
Well, if you teach the Bible, then you're going to preach Jesus on every page. And, it's kind of funny, but there's a lot of people that don't preach the Bible. They have these ideas, and then they go find Bible verses to, kind of support their ideas.
Yeah.
And so I just teach people the Bible. And if you look, man, Paul's just consistently reminding, in every letter he writes, he's like, I got to remind you of that which is of first importance, which is the gospel. That's 1 Corinthians 15. The only place where he doesn't say, hey, let me remind you of this is Galatians, but there he's pissed, dude. He's like, who has bewitched you, O foolish generation? And the whole book is nothing but the reality that we're saved by grace and not by work. So it is just a whole exposition on the gospel. And so we just believe that, we need to preach the gospel to ourselves nonstop. You never graduate from the gospel. The gospel isn't like the 101 class. It's the PhD of what it means to be a Christian. It's not just like the ignition to the car. It's bumper to bumper. It's not the ABCs. It's the A to Z. Like, it is all about the gospel. And so I don't know if I intend to or not, but that's just what I do. I'm a good news preacher of the gospel, because that is the answer.
One of the things I've noticed is when I'm listening to a preacher and they are giving the gospel, it never gets old. Like, I could hear it every day. I could hear it in every message. There's something about it that every single time I hear it, it's powerful. And I found that the same thing is true whenever I'm saying it. Whenever I'm the person speaking and giving the gospel, it never gets old. And there's a lot of stuff I get tired of hearing myself say, and the gospel ain't one of those things. And so, I'm excited that you're giving the gospel every single time you preach. I think that should be in every single church, every pulpit across this country, no matter what the lesson or the topic or the chapter or the book is for that Sunday. It should always include the gospel. Nobody should be allowed, or it shouldn't be possible to go to church and walk out and not have heard the gospel.
Well, I mean, a lot of times we thought that the gospel was only the answer to our sin problem, but what does the gospel have to do with my marriage? You'd be like, you dummy. Everything. Like, the gospel is that Christ came and gave his life for you, even though you didn't deserve it. And now husbands are called to love their wives like Christ loved us. So the more you know the gospel, the more you know how to be a husband. At work, what does it mean? What does the gospel have to do with you at work? It means that you're not working for the approval of your boss, but you're working as unto the Lord, not to earn God's favor, but God placed his favor on you through the cross, and that ought to drive you to some gospel-infected effort. I mean, the gospel is the answer to everything, whether it's anxiety or what you care about what people think about you, or an addiction, or whatever it is. The lull to comfort, the gospel is the answer. It is the bedrock of our faith, and it is also like the roof and the ceiling of our faith too. It is all-encompassing.
Man, that's awesome.
As we're getting ready to come up on Easter weekend and the resurrection and all that, a lot of our audience may not have been in tune with 1122, but I just wanted you to share real quick what's written on the walls up there on either side of you while you're preaching that just talks to this weekend.
Yeah, it says, if the tomb is empty, anything is possible.
Amen.
And the idea being, the first time I ever said that, this couple came up to me, and they were like, we got to get divorced. I was like, no, you don't. And they're like, well, God can't save our marriage. I was like, wait, I thought y'all were Christians. And they're like, yeah, we are. And I go, you believe Jesus came out of the tomb? They're like, yup. Well, if the tomb is empty, then anything is possible. Like, if he pulled off the greatest miracle of all time, then there's nothing off limits for God. And so that led to me writing 2 books about it and preaching it all the time and getting ready to preach this weekend. The whole point this weekend I'm going to focus on in Luke 24. This hit me pretty hard. The angels asked the women at the tomb, why do you look for the living among the dead? And you think about all the men that are looking for life in places that just don't bring life. Whether that's status or stuff or money or, trying to shave 3 strokes off your handicap or the next vacation or a new truck or talking to somebody that's not your wife or whatever it is, man. There's all these things in this world that offer life, but there's no life there.
That's
right.
And
you typically find what you're looking for. And those ladies were actually going to find dead Jesus to put the spices on him. And the angel is like, he is not here. And so in him is life and freedom. And so if you're looking for that in any other place than Jesus, then you will not find life and freedom. So that's going to be the Easter message this weekend that I'm working on right now.
Amen. Man, I love it. Thank you. Joby, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your ministry and what you're doing. And, man, you've encouraged me a lot today. I appreciate that. And I'm looking forward to coming down there and being a part of this leadership summit and this men's conference with you. Look forward to meeting you in person and partnering with you more.
Yeah, man, can't wait. Thanks for everything.
Thanks, Joby.
Hey, guys, listen up. I've got huge news. This coming May 2nd through 4th, we are having our first ever Men's Alliance National Rally. This is going to be the biggest, greatest gathering of barbarian ambassadors from every tribe all over the country coming together for one weekend in a state park. You can come camp out or you can stay in a local hotel, but it is going to be an incredible time. We want every tribe across the country to road trip to this rally. We are bringing you the absolute best speakers in the country. Greg Kokel, author of Tactics, founder of Stand to Reason. He will be a headlining speaker along with Stephen Mansfield, New York Times bestselling author of Band of Brothers, which has helped me start Men's Alliance. He's also the author of Men on Fire. We're going to have Pastor Brian Hughes from Passion Community Church there leading us on Sunday morning worship service outdoors. It's going to be incredible. We're going to have the Barbarian Games at the rally Friday night with live metal music performed by Saved by Scarlet. Then Saturday morning is the first national All Tribes. It's going to be epic. Go to our website, click on National Rally, get your tickets. It's going to fill up. It's going to be a great time of outdoor camping, music, workouts, speakers, and sharpening one another. Don't miss the rally. To find out more about what we're doing and to join us on our mission, go to men'salliancetribe.com. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and give us a 5-star review.